Good morning and half a day, ladies and gentlemen. I apologize for starting a little bit late. This budget hearing on the Department of Public Works is hereby called to order. As the individuals are sworn in, I'm going to read the good speaker's statement. On behalf of Speaker Benjamin B.J.F. Cruz, I want to thank everyone for your presence here today. As we continue the budget process for fiscal year 2019, we are facing overwhelming challenges due to the impacts of the Tax Cuts and the Jobs Act of 2017 on the government of Guam's revenue stream. Given such austere times, Speaker found it prudent that the Committee on Appropriations have a different tone and approach to the budget hearings. The continued implication that past patterns of appropriation levels will no longer be taken as a given. Prior to this hearing, Speaker sent a letter to each agency present today asking that you provide testimony answering specific questions relative to your agency's missions, how you measure the achievement of your missions, and other relevant matters. In prior fiscal years, the committee had taken an incremental budget approach and had requested your agency to justify any additional funding above your existing funding level. For this fiscal year, Speaker is engaging in a zero-based budgeting approach, which does not start with the prior fiscal year's funding level to justify next fiscal year's funding level. Rather, we take a deeper look into each agency's budgets from the ground up. Given the likelihood of decreased revenues from which to fund government services for our people, we must take a closer look at each and every agency of this government and not be bound to what we have always provided in the past. Some may have Googled ZBB, which is zero-based budgeting, and found that there is no true consensus on which ZBB is operationalized. I'll reiterate for the Speaker, as he wanted to clarify, that everyone that the ZBB approach the committee intends on taking is more of a shift in mindset. And as we continue this budget process, the public should be aware that what was provided for in the past is not what the committee will be solely basing decisions on for the future. The committee is doing everything it can to show the people of Guam that we are committing to a ground-up approach because the current fiscal environment calls for it. With that, we do have representatives from the Department of Public Works who are present here this morning. And I'd like to thank you, Mr. Director, for being here and also for inviting representatives and team members of Team DPW. I'd like to, before I proceed, recognize the presence of Senator Dennis Rodriguez. Thank you very much, Senator, for joining us this morning. Senator Tommy Morrison, and also Vice Speaker Therese Delay. Thank you, Senators, for joining us. And to all of Team DPW, welcome to your legislative building. Mr. Director, before you proceed with your testimony on the budget, I would like to ask that, in fact, everyone be identified or on the panel. And if there are any members in the audience who will be providing testimony, in addition to the individuals here, I need to ensure that you are all sworn in by the Sergeant at Arms. So, Mr. Director, please ensure that if you're going to pull anyone from the audience to join the panel with you, that they be appropriately sworn in before any testimony is provided. So, Mr. Director, we can begin by you identifying yourself, your team identifying themselves, and then we'll go ahead and proceed. One administrative matter, folks, if you have an instrument, call a cell phone, please place it in silent mode or vibrate mode, or shut it off so that, in fact, it does not interrupt any discussion or deliberations on DPW's budget. Mr. Director.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Senator Uggan, Senator Morrison, Senator Rodriguez, Vice Speaker Chalahi, Secretary Regina Hoffaday. To my far right, I've got Dominic Munya, the manager for building maintenance. To his left is Frank Titano, the bus superintendent. To my immediate right is Arlene Pierce, our controller. And to my immediate left is Andy Leon Guerrero, the deputy director for Department of Public Works. And to his left is Max Manzano, who's our only PE that we have on staff, and he's in charge of, he's the manager in charge of CIP. And to his left is Paul Cepeda, the superintendent for transportation maintenance. if you have any questions for, this is what we intend to present to you. If you have questions for tests, then we will bring in Ben Guerrero, but I had not intended for him to come in. Unless you have, then he'll have to be sworn in, sir. So.
Okay. If in fact there's any questions with regards to other matters and your subject matter experts are not on the panel, then you can call them accordingly. But like I said, they would have to be sworn in prior to any testimony being provided. You may proceed, Mr. Director.
Thank you. Good day, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the opportunity to present our fiscal year 2019 proposed budget. The Department of Public Works submitted its budget for FY 2019 to the legislature back in February 2018. DPW's total budget requests amounted to $20,373,810. This is an increase of roughly about $1 million when compared to fiscal year 2018's approved budget for a budget of $19,312,000. We have provided a schedule of the budget comparative tables and attachments for your review and consideration to your requests. And if you'd like to go into detail, Ms. Pierce would be happy to explain to you the tables that we have provided to you. DPW's core mission and objectives. The Department of Public Works was established under Public Law 188 in 1952 under Section 5104. DPW is responsible for providing government-wide services such as daily school bus transportation service for DOE's regular school year for over 25,000 school children, maintenance for the 180 school buses that we currently have, various road construction projects and earth-moving heavy equipment and other light vehicles, developing and maintaining Guam's roadways to include the highway construction, flood mitigation, and road maintenance, managing the government of Guam's capital improvement projects, which entails permitting and regulating Guam's construction activities, and maintaining GovGuam buildings facilities. Attached are the DPW mandates per your division listing. The general operational costs, as mentioned, DPW's FY19 budget is $1 million increased compared to FY18. FY18's approved budget. Salaries is our largest operational cost, which is about 80% of our total expenditures. Most costs include contractual, fuel, utilities, capital outlay. And if you're following along with this, we're just skipping to past table 3. DPW's FY19 budget is at
Mr. Director, if I can just ask you if you can just go highlight each table, their breakdown and their requested figure for fiscal year 19, and the reason being is because we have people who are watching, and I'd like to ensure that they have as much information as they possibly can. Thank you, Mr. Director.
No problem. Thank you. Table 1, FY19 combined budget requests, total territorial educational facilities fund, and the Guam Highway Fund's budget requests compared to 2018's approved budget and its variance, and it basically shows what we discussed, but it's got it in personnel. You want me to go through the entire table, sir?
Yes, please. Well, fiscal year 19, your request.
Okay, so the total amount is $20,373,610. If you would like me to talk about personnel, operations, and outlay.
You know, Mr. Director, you're before the legislature with a concept of zero-based budgeting. So any information that you can provide members of the legislature as well as members of the public who are watching would only enhance your presentation. Okay. So then I'll go through each of the tables then. So personnel costs for 2018 was $14,417,000. Our request this year is $14,655,000, roughly a $238,000 increase or 2% increase. Our operational costs that we're requesting for, or the approved budget was 3.7, and our current proposed budget that is 4.18 or 4.2, an increase of about 11% or $442,000. Utilities is an increase by 21%. Capital outlay, we're asking for another $196,000. In FY 2018, we had $473,000. We're asking for $670,000, which is a 29% increase. And the details for
The budget breakdown and other details can be found on tables 2 and 3 below. Detailed supporting schedules can be found in our attachments to this memorandum. Table 2, the budget breakdown by object class and each funding source. So from the TEF fund, the Territorial Education Facilities Fund, personnel, we're looking at an increase of $153,000 from FY 2018. So our budget request is $7,079,553. That's at operations. We're looking at $460,000, or a reduced budget of about $277,684, and that operational cost from the TEF basically is for fuel costs that we've spent, and so this is how we reallocated. And utilities is $540, and then the capital outlay we had $473,943 that we budgeted for buses. The Territorial Highway Fund personnel costs were for FY 2019 is $7.6 million, which is up by about $84,000 from fiscal year 2018. Operational costs we're increasing by $720,000. In FY 18, our approved budget was $3 million. We're asking for $3.72, which is a 29% increase. The utilities basically is a 6 or 7% increase, or $184,000, and the capital outlay we're looking for is $670,000. From the the Guam Highway Fund, for administration, our costs for FY 2018, this is table 3. 2018 was $1.7 million. We're asking in fiscal year 2019 $1.86, variance of $196,000, or 11% increase. Building maintenance, by division, we're looking to we're reducing that by 14%, or $116,000. In 2018, we had $942,000. This budget, fiscal budget cycle, we're asking for $826,000. For transportation maintenance, we're asking to increase it by 39%, from $1.375 million to $2.240 million, to or 39%, or $864,000 increase. And then for highways, we're increasing by 9%. In FY 2018, we had $6.135 million, and FY 19, we're asking for $6.714, $860,000, or a 9% increase. And then for capital outlay, or CIPs, we're looking at an increase in that division by 11%, or $134,000, and the ask for 2019 is $1,181,930,000. The breakdown by division for the TEF, or the Territorial Educational Facilities Fund, is bus operations. In 2019, we're asking for $7.5 million. In 2018, we asked for $7.8 million, and we had $268,000 coming out to our transportation maintenance division for bus ops. So we're taking that out and we're pushing that up to the Guam Highway Fund. So that basically is the 3 tables that we've given to you. DPW's FY 19 budget is at bare bones level. As we mentioned, about 85% is personnel. DPW's request to meet current operations is based upon our department mandates. Most of DPW's operational costs are labor, including overtime costs for emergency first responders, transportation, and highway maintenance workers, as well as heavy equipment mechanics. The staffing pattern for FY 2019 includes funded vacancies. There is a dire need to hire additional personnel, engineers, construction inspectors for our permit section and for our CIP section, bus drivers, and I'm going to have Frank talk to you a little bit more about that because of the recent change in the Guam Education Board's decision to change for the high school's scheduling times. So that impacts us, and we're going to talk about that later. Heavy equipment operators, administrative staff, safety inspectors and supervisors, guards, electricians, electrician supervisors, plumbers, refrigeration mechanics. DPW will be challenged to fund any other activities other than payroll. Other than operational costs, other operational costs include the need to purchase supplies and equipment, maintenance, roads and pothole repair, replacement of parts, tires, batteries, fuel, and oil for heavy and light equipment, and fuel for our school buses, and repairs and renovations of DPW and government buildings. DPW's mandate to adhere to Public Law 28-45, Every Child is Entitled to an Adequate Education Act, requiring the Division of Bus Operations to provide additional services to our existing operations. Also included in our operational costs are capital outlay purchases for new vehicles and heavy equipment. Please see the enclosed attachments, which has the budget breakdown per fund and per division. Our manpower needs. We actually should, do you want us to go through the listing of our, we should, based on what you're saying.
Yes, yes,
you want to
please.
get that listing for the budget, the request for this? For the capital outlay. Yeah, is that the capital outlay? Well, give him the breakdown for the capital outlay. Oh, is this what this is? Yeah, okay. So we'll talk about that. I'll go through that table later. Manpower needs. Based upon our FY 2019 budget ceiling, hiring additional personnel will be kept at a minimum in order to maintain our budget ceiling level. Bus drivers and highway personnel are in dire need, and those are our focus for hiring this upcoming fiscal year. Below is the past 6 consecutive fiscal years of personnel that DPW lost and new hires. The purpose of this chart is to show the trend of our manpower resources due to attrition, and tables 4 and 5 below. Table 4 shows that from September 30th, 2012 to this year, we've lost 34 in 2012, 27 in 27 in 2013, and hired 23. We lost 2014. 20 individuals, FTEs, and hired only 7. In FY 2015, we hired 21 FTEs, and we hired 6 FTEs and we lost 21. In 2016, we lost 13 FTEs and we hired 10. And in FY 2017, we've lost 50 FTEs and only hired 6. And as of 2018, as of May 18th, we've lost 17 FTEs and just hired 15. So we're still on a downward slide of losing employees compared to what we've actually had over the course of the years. Target number of personnel for administration for FY 2019, we're looking at 21 individuals for FTEs for administration, building maintenance 20, CIP 14, transportation 21, highways 86, bus operations 156, for a total of 307 total employees for the Department of Public Works for 2019. In comparison to 2018, we had 265 with 19 funded vacancies. In addition, the department has occupied FTEs which cannot fill the work that are hired, they are hired to fulfill. We have 15 bus drivers that are on light duty due to medical conditions, and 1 employee currently on military deployment. DPW is responsible to the people of Guam in providing 5 essential community services related to public safety, transportation, highway maintenance, government-wide support, and capital improvement projects. DPW's citizen-centric reports are prepared and issued annually and discloses our department's performance measures, and information for key services areas. As for an example, some of our key metrics which include number of crashes, DUI crashes, arrests, number of student passengers, total routes, total fleet, number of school bus, number of heavy and light equipment repairs, number of miles resurfaced, number of potholes repaired, et cetera, et cetera. The next two paragraphs, Mr. Chairman, these are unfunded mandates that we've been talking to you about for the last two fiscal cycles. The first is the U.S. Department of Labor Mine Safety Health Administration, or MSHA, which is the mine safety equivalent of OSHA, but it's for our coral pit. This unfunded mandate in fiscal year 2016, a review was conducted by the U.S. Department of Labor Mine Safety and Health Administration on DPW's coral pit. We've been advised that an audit will be forthcoming in the new fiscal year. Several discrepancies were noted. A major topic of concern was heavy equipment that complies with MSHA standards. Essentially what they're looking for, sir, is that they're looking at our heavy equipment, which in the past we were happy to get whatever we could from the leftovers from the military or whatever, and we deployed it down to our coral pit, and that's what we used to get the cascajo, take it to the matais, and to do whatever we needed to do for road improvements. They're saying that our equipment are severely inadequate because there's the concern of dust, and so they're saying that our equipment need to have air-conditioned compartments for safety reasons, and so we're estimating that to cost us roughly about $2 million, again, an unfunded mandate. And until this happens, until they actually do come and do an official audit, say that this is hopefully they don't shut us down, but until we do that, we're looking at $2 million, and we're going to have to purchase new equipment, or at least parts to confine, air condition the confined spaces that our operators are working in, for backhoes, for dozers, and for dump trucks. The next unfunded mandate, which we're in discussions with the US EPA, is the flood mitigation. And this is a new, instead of the SPCC, which is or the NPDS, the National Pollutant Discharge Systems, we are now going into discussions with Region 9 for the MS4, which is, again, stormwater mitigation. This unfunded mandate in 2014, the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, Region 9, conducted numerous studies that concluded that the urban runoff from DPW's municipal separate storm sewer system, MS4, were significant contributions of pollutants to receiving waters, rivers, and lakes or oceans that receive treated or untreated water runoff of Guam. Currently, DPW is in discussion with U.S. EPA on its National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System permit program. The permit program requires the implementation of stormwater management program to control pollutants in the discharges as required by the Clean Water Act. To comply with the permit program's requirements to maintain DPW's MS4, we anticipate the initial startup cost of about $3.7 million. That entails the purchase of heavy equipment such as excavators, dump trucks, and street sweepers. In addition, we estimate an annual operational cost of about $2.9 million. That includes the equipment maintenance, the equipment operators, administrative personnel to establish the mandated maintenance programs issued by the U.S. EPA permit program. Department of Public Works is requesting for the legislature to assist us in two areas. First, DPW's coral pit section has been performing work related to our roads and highways, and as a result, we'd like to amend the law to include the General Highway Fund to fund these projects. Because currently, we're not allowed to pull from that. Second, we are in support of the legislative bill 23134 to appropriate $3.5 million to the Department of Public Works for village repairs. And thank you, Vice Speaker Terlahi. Public Law 3444 increased the rates of the Guam Highway Fund liquid fuels tax for repairs of island-wide village roads repairs and construction construction projects. The Guam Highway Fund is projected to receive an annual additional revenues in the amount of 3.5 due to the LFT rate increase for FY 2019. I said that we have an attached list. What I did give you is the attached list of the current 1.8 that you've given me for this fiscal year and the $2 million that we got from Governor Cowell. And so we're showing that within round one, we'll finish by June 19, all one street per village. And then in round two, that's not been scheduled, but it's, that would finish up the entire amount. So for the 3.5, we'll give you that schedule, we'll give you that list, and it's going to come, Senator Duggan, from the Village Street Master Plan. DPW is rated as priority 202 of Chapter 1A, Title 5 of the Guam Code annotated relative to the government reorganization. We provided this memorandum, we have provided to this memorandum a more detailed response from various DPW divisions and missions, objectives, funding requests, and metrics. Okay. So Arlene's going to tell you what the breakdown is and the capital costs.
So if you would like to follow on Table 2, the breakdowns by divisions.
Arlene, just identify yourself for the record, just so that whoever is recording this and preparing the committee report would know who's speaking, please.
Arlene Pierce.
Yeah, thank you.
And I'm controller for the Administrative Services Division at DPW.
Okay.
And I would like to elaborate on Table 3 of the budget breakdown for our entire department. The $20.3 million that we've submitted to you, it has two funding sources, the Guam Highway Fund and the Territorial Education Facilities Fund. We do not have general fund funding. The breakdown for each of the respective funds are about $12.8 million for the Guam Highway Fund and about $7.5 million of the TEFF. The different sections or divisions within DPW, we have 6 different divisions. Administrative Services Division is about $1.8 million of the $12.8, and that consists of $1.2 in salaries, $131,000 plus in operations, and $457,000 plus for utilities. That makes up the $1.8 million. Under building maintenance, which is funded by the Guam Highway Fund, the total amount is $826K, and the distribution is total personnel of about $750K and $72K in operations with $4,000 in their telephone cost. For capital improvement projects, the total of $1.1 million consists of about $1 million in personnel and $99.8 in operations with $20,000 for telephone. For transportation maintenance, it's a total of about $2.2 million, and that consists of $1.2 in personnel, about $787,000 in operations, $4,000 in utilities such as telephone, and $200,000 in capital outlay to buy bus engines and 1 bus unit. Under the Highways Division, there's a total of about $4.8 million just for operations, with $1.8 million specifically for road repair projects. In the operations of 4.8, it consists of personnel of about 3.2 million, about 775K in operations, and 375,000 in utilities as they pay for traffic lights island-wide, and capital outlay of 470,000 to purchase a tractor and pickup trucks. And that makes up the Guam Highway Fund of about 12.8 million. Under the Territorial Education Facility Funds, it finances 100% of bus operations at 7.5, and that is 7 million in salaries and the difference in fuel cost. That's our, in a nutshell, that's our entire
Mr. Chairman, just one more thing. We've given you the detailed, and it is from the ground up. But if you would like, we can talk to the managers. You're saying what you want to know what our operational costs, what they're going to use it for, be happy to share that if you'd like. If you don't need that, it's here, but if you want us to verbalize it, that's fine as well. Well,
Mr.
Your pleasure, sir.
Director Leongoro, thank you very much. I mean, you're at the point, the head of the table, and based on your presentation, then we start posing questions. And if in fact you would like any of your subject matter experts to be able to chime in, then at that time you can be able to recognize them. Okay, so we're going to proceed with the questions. First of all, there's a number of questions that have been prepared by Speaker Cruz that I would like to present, and then I have a few questions of my own, and then senators, colleagues, I will open the floor for any additional questions from yourselves. So beginning with Speaker Cruz's questions, DPW has a request for $32,440 for travel. I know that this travel is to send a controller to a Government Finance Officers Association conference in Los Angeles, California, the director or the deputy director to the American Public Works Association in Seattle, Washington, an engineer to the Public Works Expo in Seattle, Washington, a plan review engineer to the American Disabilities Association conference, and a transportation maintenance superintendent and automotive mechanic 2 to the advanced training on the RTA fleet management software. If these items were not funded in fiscal year 2019, what impact would it have on DPW's current operational levels?
Good question, and we can go individually. So for the accounting, this is what we've been funding, and this is how we pay for Arlene's CPU's ongoing credit. What you want to?
In our accounting profession, there's a public law, I have the reference here, I believe 22-74, that allocates continuing professional educations to government accountants. And then the other training distributed by the other divisions, the RTA system is our fleet management system that's pretty robust and requires continuous training on all the different modules within that fleet management system. The travel for the CIP, our professional engineer also would need to attend the Public Works conference to be up to date with the current development and training.
Okay, moving on, because I could ask about a Public Works Expo, sending someone off island, considering the financial condition of this government. It's an expo. It's not a conference, or at least based on the information provided here. And then there are a few other components, but I'll leave it for the speaker to have any follow-up question if in fact he chooses to do so. Next question is, under the Capital Improvement Projects Division, there is a request for attorney assistance, MOA, of $60,499, whereas in the prior fiscal year, it was $34,000. Can you explain what this is for and why DPW needs to nearly double this request from the prior fiscal year?
Okay, we're assuming that currently in the current Budget Act, we have an attorney that we go through with the Department of Attorney General's office through an MOU. And at this time, he's working on our procurement appeals related to one of our huge projects, the Simon Sanchez, at this time. So our allocation is distributed mostly to him in this assumption.
We're on our 4th procurement appeal. So last year, the department expended about $34,000 in legal fees through the Attorney General's office. We're on our 4th procurement appeal. So you're saying that this one procurement appeal is going to require a doubling of the legal fees?
No, it's not just Simon Sanchez, Mr. Chairman. There are other things. We have we're so far behind with MOUs. We need to do an MOU for all the mayors. We're and we need to do an MOU currently with the Department of Land Management. So we need legal assistance in terms of developing these MOUs. We've recently just went into an MOU with Department of Corrections, where we're training their inmates, and so our legal services, we found that we haven't had MOUs, and now we need to do catch up.
Okay, then let me also a follow-up question. How much in legal fees did the Department of Public Works pay for fiscal year 17?
Let me just take a step back, sir. For our attorney is Tom Keeler, and we've been paying him 100%, used to be 100% out of the Federal Highway Fund, so it's a federally funded. And what we would do is, because he's there, is we're pulling him out and paying out. When he does local work, we pay him with local work. So we're seeing that the amount of work that his workload has increasingly increased. Obviously, we have issues with permits. We have issues with, and not just issues like people saying that we have encroachments and people are challenging us. So if an attorney comes to my office with a problem with our permit section, Tom's going to have to represent me. And then but for the most part, those are your common day-to-day needs for attorney legal services. But what I'm seeing is that we are so far behind in terms of documenting
Director Leon, let me ask you, how much did DPW pay in legal fees for fiscal year 2017? Local funds.
Senator, I will have to get back with you. I don't have that
Please provide that
information
information
in front of me.
to the chairman, to Speaker
We'll do
Cruz.
so, sir.
And I think that the question was very pointed, and it says, the question is, why does DPW need to nearly double this request from the prior fiscal year? And that is the question that is being posed by the Speaker, and I have not received a response. MOUs with the mayor's office, MOUs with, I don't know if you mentioned Parks and Recreation, MOUs, standard documentation, one-time use, template. I mean, you're telling me that we're looking at doubling our legal fees for local activities in one fiscal year.
Yeah, but I anticipate this not to be a one-off. I anticipate this as we're going to continue to need the legal services. I
understand, Director Leongoro, but the question is not a 10% adjustment or a 20% adjustment considering the increased requirement. It's almost a doubling of the legal fees. And that's why that question was posed. How much in legal fees with local resources that the Department of Public Works pay out in fiscal year 17? Because that would give the Speaker and the committee at least a starting point, rather than saying, let's double it. Now, you're trying to justify it by the MOUs with the Mayor's Council's office and MOUs that have to be formulated with other entities. MOUs is a singular template with the exception of changing the names of the recipient the arrangement, in most cases, Mr. Director. Okay, we're going to move, and I would like to request that you provide that response to the Speaker, please, because this is originating from his question. Third question is, under the Transportation and Maintenance Division, there is a request for $590,000 for tires, parts, and materials for school buses, which is an increase of $533,000. For fiscal year 2018, the DPW budget request shows it was authorized to spend $57,000. Why is there such a large variance and increase? Mr. Cepeda, if you can identify yourself before you...
Post Petty Superintendent, Transportation Maintenance Division. In FY 2018, we were only given $100,000 for 240, then the TEF of 268. We have about 60 buses that are 19 years or older. For those buses alone, it takes about $5,000, roughly $5,000 per bus, okay? We have 56 that are 14 years or older, okay? And then we have 10 that are 4 years old and 52 that are fairly new. The money that was given to me in 2018 was not enough. If it wasn't for the DOI grant that we purchased, the 52 school buses, we had some excess money that we used to purchase parts with that also. So that kind of helped us out. So for 2019, I requested for additional funds, which still to me is not enough, to maintain not just the buses, I'm talking heavy equipment, light vehicles, for the department. So that's why I opted to about, it's actually like 600 some thousand, 230, 240 account. Came up to like 600 some thousand.
Thank you, Mr. Cepeda. Mr. Cepeda, safety with regards to equipment and buses is paramount when you're talking about providing direct services and also ensuring the safety of all of your personnel, DPW personnel that are utilizing these equipment. So I agree with you. The allocation that's being requested is needed. But the question was 57,000 prior fiscal year. Now there's an increase of 533,000, which is justified. I'm taking your presentation to the T because I know that some of your buses and some of your heavy equipment is certainly in need of either upgrade or repairs. It's just be mindful, Mr. Cepeda, that, and also everyone here at the table, that the legislature provided a lump sum budget to DPW. So if in fact there was a loss of how many personnel that was highlighted in the presentation in just the last year, if you're looking at fiscal year 17, 50 individuals left the department, either by virtue of retirement or either by virtue of transfer or just they left the department. 6 FTEs were hired. This is based on the presentation. So if you look at that, and in fiscal year 17, the budget was $1.5 million more than fiscal year 18. So there are some areas here where really management has to step in and ensure the safety of your equipment and the buses, especially if it's transporting our children every single day. And Mr. Director, this really comes down to your desk. Because if your people, if the allocation was 57,000, that 57,000 came from the director, from your office. So if you had all those additional personnel in fiscal year 18, you've lost 17. You've replaced 15. You've hired 15.
Two explanations, sir.
I just need to highlight that your request for fiscal year 18 was $1.5 million less than fiscal year 17 that was provided to you. So that's where the disconnect to me comes in looking at some of these numbers. And Mr. Cepeda is saying we need additional resources. He's giving the justification, and I support his contention, because we need to ensure that not only do we replace vehicles and trucks and heavy equipment and buses in a regular manner, but we also need to ensure that if any of these are going to be used for transportation purposes or utilized by any of our personnel, that safety is paramount in the use of that. So, Mr. Cepeda, thank you for that response. I think it's best if I proceed to the next question. Under the division of highways, there are several new items requested that were not authorized in prior fiscal years. Can DPW operate at its current level if these items are not funded in fiscal year 19? And be mindful that these are questions originating from the Chairman of Appropriations. One is advertisement for $3,000. Mr. Director?
The advertisement cost for $3,000?
I'm going to go item by item, because this is how he presented the question.
So I'm going to ask Liz, you want to come? Is Ken here?
Okay.
Could we take this?
We're going to go item by item, and if you have the response, provide the response.
I do have the response, but it's either Liz or Ken Bloss, and
okay, then we'll come back.
He's currently talking with
Mr. Director, we'll come back to that.
Okay.
UIC sampling and analysis of 25,000.
For all the highway questions, sir, can we wait for Mr. Bloss to come back in?
Okay. Then I will proceed to the next question. DPW's request for power and water is much higher than in the prior fiscal year. Can you explain the increase?
We have an increase in power and in water during the current fiscal projected for fiscal year 2019.
The next question is, in the current fiscal year 2018, based on DPW's current staffing patterns submitted, there is approximately 16 funded vacant positions that have not been filled. In fiscal year 2019, DPW requests 17 funded vacant positions are being requested. Given DPW has been able to operate without these positions being filled in fiscal year 18, can DPW continue to have these positions unfilled in fiscal year 19?
You'd have to go through each division, and I can explain what that is, so let me do that. Okay, so for administration, we're basically looking at additional security guards, 19 in 2018, so we're looking at the funded vacancy for that. Building maintenance, Dominic's lost a lot of employees through attrition, and as a result, we've lost a lot of capacity. Do you want to tell them what we're looking at? We need 20 people, but we're to stay within the ceiling. We're asking for an additional person for building maintenance. CIPs it's basically the same story, Mr. Chairman. We lost a lot of people through attrition, and just to stay within the ceiling, that's our 19. We're focusing our personal recruitment in highways for trades helpers to do road repairs, and bus operations, as I mentioned in my testimony.
Okay, thank you. And you did present it in your testimony where, in fact, the number of funded positions will be approximately 19, of which bus operations would be reflective of 4. We're just talking about the budget that we are considering right now, funded positions that are presently vacant. So we got 4 for bus operations, highway is 11, and then 1 for each of the other subcategories, 1 for admin, 1 for building maintenance, 1 for CIPs, and 1 for transportation maintenance. So you're looking at 19 vacant positions that, based on your budget proposal, you are funding.
That we want to fulfill, yes.
Okay. A few other questions, and then I will open it up to the senators. Mr. Director, what is the balance of the DPW Building and Design Fund?
I'm sorry, you're talking about revenues or expenditures?
What is the balance at the moment? The question
Revenues.
is, what is the balance of the DPW Building and Design Fund?
Revenues. I don't have the financial statements with me at this time. Revenues were tracking about, for fiscal year 2018, about, I believe, maybe 700,000. I have to get back with you on how much we're tracking at this time, but we average about a million a year. And also we have a 25% allocation given to us from the building permits revenues. And so far that's tracking at about 200,000.
So you get approximately $1 million annually.
The revenues.
I mean, you can provide.
Yeah.
Please provide the appropriate documents.
Okay. All right.
To the chair.
We'll do. Every quarter we provide our quarterly reports, and our revenue trackings are part of those, which is also in our website.
Okay.
So last quarter
Let me
was
ask
March.
you a follow-up question. Did you transfer, or have any of these funds been transferred out? Did you transfer any of these funds elsewhere, outside the department?
No, sir.
Maybe do.
We did 3 years ago. I found out that what I did was wrong. So, but we have not done it, and they've asked for money this year or last year, and we told them we can't because the law says that we can't transfer it out. So no. The answer to your question is no. It has not been transferred out.
So the answer to the question is yes and no. So have you
Yes,
transferred
for
money out
several
of
years ago, yes.
this particular fund? The answer is yes, but
Correct.
3 years ago,
That's
based
right.
on your statement.
Yes, sir.
And since then, you have not transferred any funds out of the department.
That's correct.
For purposes.
And we've informed
Okay.
DOA that cannot be transferred.
Okay, regarding the the bus transportation, how many special projects coordinator have you hired, or let me ask this, how many special projects coordinators have you hired as of fiscal year 18? Special project coordinators. No, just a general question. How many special projects coordinators has DPW hired in fiscal year 18?
I have to get back with you.
It's either one or none, sir. We've got to determine what the recent person that we've had.
One or none?
Yeah.
Okay. So out of the 17 additional individuals that you've hired for this fiscal year, it's either one or...
Yeah, our policy is to, it's easy to hire LTAs, but I don't want to do that. We need FTEs.
Okay. How many engineers under capital improvement or structural have you hired in fiscal year 18?
One. Max.
Local funds?
Yes. BDF. Building Development Fund.
Building Development Fund. Okay. How many school bus drivers have you hired in fiscal year 18? And how long will it take to get any additional new hires on board?
My name is Frank Taitano. I'm the superintendent for bus operations. For this year, we hired 7 bus drivers.
For fiscal year 18, you've hired 7.
Yes.
And how long would it take to get any additional hires on board? What is the process?
What's the process is when we turn in all the paperwork to DOA, and then they make the announcement of the list. If there's anybody that applies for it, then we just wait for the rating from DOA, and then when they give us all the listing, it really depends on how many or who or what, if they applied.
But what's your time frame? 90 days from the date of announcement, 120 days?
Sometimes it'll take 4 months.
So about 120 days.
Yeah.
Are there any standards in place for the position of school bus drivers? As an example, Department of Transportation medical certificate, or what requirements are there for school bus drivers?
As long as they have a chauffeur's license, which is a Class B, and when they go through the process of DOA and they are selected, they go through a drug testing before they're even brought into the department, and then they have to pass a physical exam before they go before they're brought into the department.
And are there any additional documentation required?
No.
Like court clearance?
Oh yes,
police clearance?
that's with every position through DOA's court clearance, police clearance, and traffic court clearance.
Just want to make sure that that's highlighted. How many bus drivers are presently, and I know you highlighted it, Mr. Director, 15 that are presently on light duty? Can I ask, from a management perspective, because that's taking resources out of your bus division, bus drivers division. From a management perspective, wouldn't it be appropriate, working with Civil Service Commission and DOA, to be able to take these individuals, reassign them to other sections where they can apply their skills and still be retained by the department and hire additional bus drivers?
We do work with DOA, and right now some of them that are getting paid from bus operations are temporarily reassigned within the department, like to warehouse, to maybe write down the receiving or whatever they do at warehouse, or to highway maintenance sign shops, or to GIP where they just log in and log out paperworks. And yes, we are working with DOA. We did turn in their everything that's required to get an SME, which is a special medical examination. And then what happens after that is if they can no longer be a bus driver, then what happens is they're given an application and they go through a profile. We've done it in the past where one of them that's no longer with the department was profiled only to be a trades helper. So if Department of Public Works doesn't have any openings for trades helpers, then they'll look at other agencies.
but you have 15 bus drivers on light duty.
Yes, due to
So-
different medical reasons. Some of them are temporarily.
No, okay, I understand. But of the 15, how many have been on light duty in excess of 1 year?
I would say 7.
So you have 7 individuals that have been on light duty in excess of 1 year, and yet the system hasn't been able to work where, in fact, these individuals are permanently reassigned elsewhere,
Well-
either within the department or within the government of Guam family.
Yes, they are. We have 2 that we're using as our dispatchers. They come
But
in.
are they dispatchers today?
Yes, they are today.
So
They're
their
not.
title
they're-
is a
no, their
dispatcher.
title is still a school bus driver.
Mr. Taituno, that's exactly what I'm getting to. Because you tell me, well, how many bus drivers, based on the title, how many do you have in place right now?
How many do we have in place right
Total.
now for actual drivers?
Bus drivers. Anyone with the position of bus driver.
We have 99 school bus drivers that can actually drive a bus right now.
So 99 plus 15?
Yes.
That's
Bus,
what-
with bus operations, we have a total of 137 total employees. 136 of that is FTEs and 1 LTA.
So you have 99 bus drivers that actually go out into the field, they transfer our students to and from school and for other activities. You have 15 that are on light duty, and that's what I'm referring to, Mr. Taituno. Rather than hiring for admin staff, you have a request for admin staff of 1 individual that's funded. You have other positions that could possibly have these individuals who are on light duty transferred over to within the department, so that they are officially out of the division, and you can now use that position to hire an individual that can literally go out into the field. So rather than 99, you would have 114 bus drivers.
Yes, I understand where you're coming from, Senator. But if, for example, if they're temporarily reassigned to security guard and the admin don't have an opening for security guard, then they're just assisting them over there.
And then this is where the director comes into play, because you're working within the department. Director is working within Department of Public Works and Gov Guam family. And that's why this is a conversation where we have to ensure that rather than going out there and hiring additional brand new personnel, that we allow our existing personnel to maximize their service to this government and to the community. So if we have 15 bus drivers, and keep in mind that when these individuals are transferred, I believe there's a protection in terms of the compensation.
Yes.
So they are not going to take a drop in pay.
Yes.
They will be transferred in terms of their responsibilities, they will be transferred in terms of positions, but they will not take a drop in pay. So I need to make sure that that's clear. But in this case, this is where we have to work within the entire department rather than hiring additional personnel. Of the 15 that you hired this year, you know, I could ask the question, how many were for admin? Could any of these bus drivers been transferred, at least the 15 that are on light duty, be transferred to be able to augment and provide that support with that new position? Those are decisions, Mr. Taituno, you're responsible for the bus operations. This is where Director Leongaro has to step in and say, these are the number of personnel I have within DPW. Now let's look at how we can maximize their contribution and their service to the department or to the entire government of Guam. And it really comes down to that, Mr. Director, because when you see the chair of appropriations asking about an advertising expense of $3,000, and when you're talking about $32,000 in travel expense, that based on his line of questions are not necessary.
No,
I'm just saying,
Yeah.
based on his lines of questions.
Sure.
So if you look at it from that perspective, then we need to maximize the resources we have today.
Point well
and it all
taken.
goes back to also providing the repair and the upgrade or the renovation of some of the vehicles and the heavy equipment, so that in fact our personnel can appropriately apply
Point
their
well taken,
skills.
Mr. Chairman. What I was looking at was in dealing with that, and again, within the government merit system, what I was looking at was seeing what we could do to have them go on medical retirement. And that was my focus. It's same underlying premise to maximize the position, because I was looking at those positions. But just one point of clarification is that even if I do, within the department or within another government or Guam agency, if he's transferred out, this next fiscal year, I'm still transferring that person with the salary to cover that, so that whoever takes him on, whether it be a division or another agency, then they can ask for that person's budget within the next cycle. So, but point well taken, and I wasn't looking at it from that perspective, but thank you. I can, and I will look at it.
This government has hired, since the beginning of the fiscal year, 200 some employees. I'm sure a number of them could have utilized the skills of some of your individuals who are holding the title of bus driver, so that they can be cross-transferred rather than bringing in a new hire into this government. So I'm looking at this entire government as one family. In addition to entertaining your concerns with DPW and looking at the budget, I'm looking at the entire government and saying, how can we maximize what we're already spending with our existing personnel so we don't have to undermine their skills? Some of your bus drivers that have light duty, they're probably being extensively underutilized with the level of skill that they have. So by virtue of looking at other positions within the government in Guam and ensuring that there's greater efficiency in terms of the use of personnel and the use of funds, then we can come back to the table and say, DPW, you're going to get those 15 positions funded when these individuals are reassigned elsewhere. And
point well taken.
I think the point is
well taken.
Has been shared with you, yes, in terms of having a different mindset with how we work with our government. That's what it really has to come down to, because the revenues are going to come in, but there are other areas that we need to focus these resources also. And I don't need to necessarily highlight that, with the exception of you have heard it repeatedly. When we look at education, when we look at healthcare, we look at public safety. Those are areas that the community wants us to continue to provide resources. But DPW also provides a necessary service. So I recognize that. Final question is, how many bus drivers are on SMEs?
That's what
Special medical evaluation.
That's what I was trying to get to earlier.
Please, Mr. Titan.
We are like I said, we are working with DOA. We did send the paperwork down. They sent back the notice that they're lacking 1 or 2 documents, so we're working with them to get all of those light duties through the SMEs. And there are some that are going through medical retirement, but medical retirement doesn't just take overnight. So they're working with the retirement and getting all their paperwork to be turned in. And also, it's a lot easier said than it is done. But some of those medical paperwork that come from the doctor, to you and me, it may sound ridiculous, but to the employee, it doesn't, because some of them have no prolonged standing for more than 5 minutes, no prolonged sitting for more than 5 minutes. So what do they expect me to make the individual do?
By the way, that's not ridiculous.
No, but
when someone has a medical condition,
yes,
we need to be able to recognize that and say, okay, we're not going to put them through this individual through whatever strenuous work that is contradictory to their medical diagnosis. So, okay, but the question is, how many bus drivers are on SME?
We send all
all 15?
No, not all 15, because just within the last week we got 3. 1 for a broken leg, so he can't drive a bus, so he's temporarily on light duty.
How many? Of your entire 119 or 137 personnel? How many
out of the 15, there's only 10. There's 10 that we send down to DOA. 10
that are being processed, but
yes,
they're not certified
being
SME
processed.
status. Okay. Okay, I'm going to open the floor to a number of the other senators. Senator Rodriguez, you have any questions? Thank you for your responses, folks.
I'm sorry,
yes,
Senator, if I may get back with you. You were asking about SBCs. We have funded 1 position that's vacant under the Capital Improvement Projects Division, and we have 2 filled positions under FHWA, which is 100% federally funded.
So you have 1 under Capital Improvement Projects.
As a funded vacancy.
As a funded vacancy, which
and
is filled now, right?
It's not yet filled.
So it's okay. And then
But,
you have
but
two.
the other two are from the FHWA, 100% federally funded, and they're
Okay.
filled.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that clarification. Senator Rodriguez?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Good morning to the management. And to all of you here, I want to just recognize all the DPW staff. Thank you very much for your service. I want to particularly recognize the maintenance, highway maintenance guys that do the in-house paving, especially that Chalan Lamaso area that we worked very closely with you guys. So if you're here today, Sidus Masi, and thank you for your service. Mr. Leonger, I do have a question on promised compensation. A few years ago, that's something that our office have worked with your department in trying to rectify and resolve that long years of employees who haven't been paid for promised compensation. I know there was some development, but I do notice in your report that there is still outstanding promised compensation. So if you can provide me that information, or provide us that information now.
Can do.
Did you want the details of everyone? Because it's part of our exhibit.
Okay,
And-
no. So the details is not. I'm not looking at it because I have that. But is that part of your request? It's to take care of those individuals, all of the individuals. Is that part of your request?
No, it's not part of our.
But we absolutely.
No, I'm sorry. Can you turn?
We absolutely want to pay everybody.
So is it
that's
part of your budget request here?
Not here. We needed to stay within the ceiling, sir.
So how do we intend to? How did you intend to pay them? If that was something the department wants to do.
If you allow me to do to pay that, when we inevitably we have lapses, and I'm allowed to pay from the lapses, I'd be happy to. You're absolutely right. People need to get paid, but it's not just a simple. There's a compensation that's outstanding because they'd have to go through the process. They still have to go through the Department of Administration. They'd still have to justify their pay, et cetera, and then we pay that off. But yes.
Okay. So I guess so. My question would be specific now. How many employees are owed or promised compensation? How many of them have gone through the process through DOA, through BBMR? Because I know a few years ago, one of the problems was that DPW would submit it, it would be bounced back for some reason or the other. You would rectify that, but by that time, the budget cycle ends, and so you start that whole cycle over, and the employee ends up having to wait again. So what's the specifics on that? How many do you have that's pending, and how many have been processed already? It's just awaiting payment.
I would have to get back with you on that.
Okay, do you have an estimate on how much though, on the amount? At least the amount.
We have a total of, out of our 1.2 million of prior year obligations, 659,000 is for vendors and about 508,000 are determined to be labor related, and part of that is the promised compensation.
Okay, does that include overtime or is that
Yes,
just
sir.
the
All kinds,
all
all
kinds.
different kinds of compensation.
Okay, can you please provide this committee
Sure.
and myself a copy of that? Because I think we have to be able to resolve it. I know the department, the director has said that this is something that is a priority, but it can't be paid if we don't add it into the budget. And so we're going to work with the committee to ensure that it's part of your budget for fiscal year 2019.
Okay.
So the amount, Senator Rodriguez, is $540,000.
Okay,
and,
she just, yeah.
And we only have one person that has actually gone through the process that we can actually pay out.
Okay, so that one person, but the others that are part of that list
They'd have to go through the process.
No, but has the exercise been done before? Because based on what we've taken a look at, is that there was a bunch of them that have gone through the exercise maybe 2 or 3 times.
I'm not aware, but we can initiate that
Okay,
again.
please, if you could, because one of the efforts that we've done as well is to get DOA to institute a promised compensation policy, because there has been none, and I'm not sure if they've actually done it already. We had a bill last term that was pending, but this has to be resolved. I know that DPW has one of the largest in terms of promised compensation. So, if we can just please provide that, I appreciate it.
Thank you, thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
Thank you
The
for
other question I
looking
have is on the flood mitigation. 3253, I believe. I know the report as well has, the different areas that have already been completed. There's one in Barrigada particularly. We've been working with the mayor. This is the San Antonio area, I believe.
Do you know the name of the street?
San Antonio, I believe.
Is it San Antonio Street?
This is the Limtiaco family, I believe. I don't know if you have anyone here could answer, but the mayor claims that they've been attempting to get this resolved. It's not a funding problem because the funds are there and have been there for this, for Public Law 3253. And so I just want an update on where that is.
I can get back to you, Senator.
Okay. That's all for now. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Rodriguez. Vice Speaker Talai, any questions?
Thank you. And thank you all for being here. And thank you for your presentations this morning. And thank you for your work under a very slim budget last year, or this current fiscal year, FY18. And I remember you saying that last year, that budget that was being capped would only be able to pay personnel and not really give you the supplies and other equipment that you need to expand any services that you were, in the middle of, or that the employees could provide with what you had in stock. And now you're saying that again this year. But if you could, and just because the way the speaker is doing the budgets this year, we want to hear the really the justification. And I heard the question that he had asked earlier, if you didn't fund these positions this year, FY18, what's to say you can't operate in FY19 without those positions? So I don't think anyone here believes that you should be able to operate without those, but I think we just need to hear it from you. So you gave a list of, you said, the dire need to hire additional personnel, and then you listed categories: engineers, construction inspectors, and it goes on. And then on table 5, if you could just explain this table 5. So it says number of funded vacancies is 19. So do you mean these will be funded with the FY19 budget request?
Yes.
Okay, so does that take care of your dire need list?
No.
So could you please explain, and what will it take care of, and what is not there that's still in dire need, and why?
Okay, we can start with bus.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Bus operation needs an additional employees to meet our goals and mandates. Breakdowns as follows. We need to hire 81 more bus drivers.
81?
Yes, and I will get to that. What we need to do is we need to bring our numbers up to 189 so that everybody in this room will not receive calls of students coming to school late, or students coming home late, or students at the bus stop too early in the morning, as 5 o'clock, 5:30 in the morning. We've met with GDOE, numerous meetings. We've brought the meetings out to the schools. We had the stakeholders' inputs on the redistricting and also probably a time change for some of the schools. Now, if we were to implement all of that, then bus operations would not be able to handle all of that. Meaning, right now they have, an example is up in the north, you have students passing Daniel Parish Elementary to go up to UP Elementary, which doesn't make sense. So we're trying to fix that to where they go to the school closer to their residence. You have students passing Okudu High School to go down to JFK, and when we opened the, Okudu, we did the redistricting like that just to solve the overcrowding. Just like you have students passing Tizen to go to GW. So we're working on that with GDOE, and if they implement all of that, then we will not have enough manpower to be taking all the kids to school on time. And in the past, I've been saying that that's the number, that's because we have 179 routes. So we're asking for 189 drivers every day and 200 buses. The reason why the 200 buses is because we were, on part of our audit, we're supposed to have 20 buses, like a standby bus in case one breaks down, we just get one right away and don't have to wait for the mechanic to repair it. We can just take one right off the back of the station. And the 10 drivers is so that if on any given day we have 10 to 15 drivers call in sick or annual leave or jury duty or for whatever reason they don't show up to work. And then we can take those drivers and just put them out wherever we need the drivers to be. Okay, so we're looking at
Madam Vice Speaker, Mr. Taitano, I hate to interject, but Madam Vice Speaker, we can go through all these divisions and ask for the wish list. But the director's request for this fiscal year alone reflected a $1.5 million reduction that was given to DPW for fiscal year 18. So in this particular case, the advocacy really has to come from the director's desk as well as through the governor's office. Because otherwise, you're asking for 90 additional bus drivers, and I recognize the need, but then how many buses do you have? Because you have bus drivers that are going to be sitting on the sideline when in fact they should be. So, Madam Vice Speaker, I'm just going to I'll allow him to be able to respond to your question, but I do have a concern when all these wish lists are being presented, and then it's going to come back to us and say, yes, but we presented to the legislature. Guess what? You did not present it to the legislature in this fiscal year's budget because it's not reflective in the $1.5 million reduction that was requested and given to DPW for fiscal year 18. Madam Vice Speaker?
Please proceed.
We're asking to purchase an additional 72 more buses. Right now we have a total count of 178. 20 are in the shop for major repairs. And like Mr. Cepeda said, they're past the economic repair life and they're older than 10, 15 years already. So it's time we should start replacing those. And then that will bring our numbers up to 199 to 200 buses every day.
That's pretty alarming, Mr. Director.
So just what I'm anticipating, or what my goal was, Vice Speaker Terlahi, is that we realize that Mr. Chairman says this is our wish list. It's actually really part of us meeting the mandate today as we speak.
Then Director Leongura, why are you not presenting it as your budget request? If this is what you need
it's
to
like
meet a mandate,
it's like what you said, Mr. Chairman. I live in a family with other agencies, and we have to stay within a budget ceiling. And it's up to you, and I respect that. You have to decide with the finite money that we have, how much goes to safety, how much goes to education, how much goes to health. That's what we live within. You're asking us, and if you'd give us, you call it our wish list, we're saying this is our mandate. This is what we as a department have.
That's why I'm saying, Mr. Director, and this is something that we've been impressing on some individuals in government over the course of the last several months. If you have a mandate, you have to follow it. So if that's your mandate, then submit that presentation. Now, that's where you have to go up to the front office and convince them that we need at a minimum to be able to meet our mandate. So otherwise, we have a law that's not being followed. And
what we'll do is we'll live with what we have, and that's kind of what we're.
So you're saying it's a part of our mandate. We have to follow it. This is what's being requested to comply with the mandate, but this is what we're given, so we're going to live with it.
Yes.
It just doesn't match.
No, it doesn't, and it won't match, Mr. Chairman. It won't. What we need is, he's saying he needs 189 bus drivers. I'm trying to make it so that we live within our confines, that we're able to, so that when you make your decisions for the other priorities, which is, I mean, if you want me to just focus on DPW, I can give that to you, and it's not going to be It'll satisfy DPW. It's kind of like the same line of questioning you asked me when I was here before about the Territorial Highway Fund. You said, I've got 20 million and 10 million of that goes into DPW. All of that goes, and how come we're not having our roads improved? And the reality is you gave me $10 million in Territorial Highway Funds, $7 million in TEF funds, and And if I were to use that all for the highways, no problem. But you wouldn't have CIP, you wouldn't have bus or maintenance, transportation maintenance, you would have building maintenance funded. So,
Director Leongoro, please make sure you present the correct context, because there's been a transference of personnel within DPW from general fund to TEFF.
Correct.
General fund to Guam Highway Fund.
correct.
Because of decisions that ultimately came from the desk that you're presently occupying and the front office. So don't make it appear as if, in fact, this body is the ones giving you whatever resources that you're requesting,
No.
and then all of a sudden it's going to come back and
Sir, that's not what you. That's not what happened the last time.
Mr. Director, you're here to present your budget. Okay?
Yes.
And I've been interjecting myself when Vice Speaker
Yes, you
has the
have.
floor, but I just don't want all this information to be presented to the legislature and 5 months down the road, well, we gave it to the legislature, we presented that information, when in fact the request has to originate from your desk. Madam Vice.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Thank you for your answer. I think that, I guess what I want to ask you back is, if you're working with DOE, and I guess there's going to come a point with not just your division, but the other divisions, where you tell DOE, okay, we're going to accommodate your schedule and, we're going to do it, or it's impossible, we're not able to accommodate your schedule, and then what are we faced with, right? Are they unable to implement these changes because the bus scheduling cannot be fixed, or, or cannot be met, or, yeah, I don't know which, comes first almost. But anyways, I appreciate that you are working with them and that you are attempting to meet the mandates of DOE in this regard. I think it's of course all of our concern, what's going to happen in all of these divisions. DPW is not getting what it needs. That's very clear, and we've seen it. We've seen it shrink, right, from the large agency and how everything used to be done in-house. We've seen that over the years, so I am very concerned that, people complain about the maintenance of public buildings and lots of things, but yeah, this is, I think, where we need to make those decisions right now. Mr. Director, so I guess that illustrates the point, and I personally would like to hear from all of you. I think maybe, my colleagues are a little impatient during this hearing to hear every single division, but that's what I want to point out to you, Mr. Director, that you're requesting only 19 employees, but you've made it very clear to us that even the 19 employees will not bring you to your mandate, right?
That's correct.
To be able to complete your mandates, and I think I would say it in those terms if I was going to submit anything in addition to this testimony, to say 19 will bring us to this level. And what are those levels? You say it will, we'll be able to fund employees, but what will you fund in each division? Current bus schedules, we will not be able, or we will be able to accommodate DOE's changes in districts and time of their high schools, right? That type of thing. If you know the details, the more details, the better, I think.
We have that.
Okay, and so if I could, Mr. Chair, I would just I'm going to condense my questions, and please talk to me more about the roads. So you gave us this repair list for the village repair list. So these are the locally, you said these two lists are being funded out of the money that we receive from the governor.
1.8 from this fiscal year, and
is that from
local
Compact
funds.
Impact?
No. Compact
Local.
Impact is 2 million.
Oh, okay.
So that's total of three. The Guam Highway Fund of 1.8 plus the 2 million from Department of Interior.
Okay. Compact Impact. And then, so none of this is from the increase in the liquid fuels tax?
No.
All right. And so your testimony today is that you've still been unable to access any of that money?
But we need it to be appropriated from this body, sir.
All right. And then you said that repair list 1, round 1, is almost completed?
Yes, it'll be done by June 19th.
June, that's great. Thank you very much. Thank you to all of you who are involved in that. And then repair list 2, you said, was not yet scheduled. Why is it not yet scheduled?
We just finished the scheduling for round 1. We need to schedule with the Hawaiian Rock, we work at their schedule. They do other projects, and that's when we'll schedule it with them. So, but it is the next iteration you'll start seeing in July. We're not going to stop working, but my requirement, my request of my guys is that we finish the first 19 roads by summer, and which we have. And now the next challenge is to finish round 2, and then we'll give you a listing for the next $3.5 million.
What do you mean the next 2.5?
For this current fiscal year,
Okay.
or this calendar year, where you're collecting 4 cents more.
Okay. Oh. So for next calendar year, will you also get this money again? The same money that you used for repair list 1 and 2?
That's up to you.
No,
Senator.
this one you said was $2 million from compact and
Oh, no.
and 1.8 from.
I don't know. That's the call of the governor, not mine. The interior is the call of the governor.
Yes. Well, I guess, all right, because that would affect how many roads you could get done, obviously, right?
Sure.
In FY 18 and
Sure.
19.
So what we would plan for, Vice Speaker, is the 3.5, which we know is collecting now as
Okay.
we sell gas, I guess.
Okay, what about, just one more time, explain, so for these projects, these are being done in-house, except that you contract out one certain phase with Hawaiian Rock, you said?
Yes,
What is that, the asphalt?
Asphalting, yes.
Okay, so are you able to schedule round 2 for the in-house part?
Yes.
All the way?
Yes.
Will it be completed during FY 18?
The FY18 portion we've already expent. The interior money, which can go past, all we need to do, I think, is ask them that we're going to, if we need to go past the fiscal year, we just ask for an extension, and they normally grant that to us. I think that the longest period of time it took us was the procurement process, and the actual construction phase, we're actually just going really fast. I think the highway maintenance crew, they're doing a tremendous job, and I'm very proud of them. Let me put it to you this way. I would not be surprised if we finished this before the end of this fiscal year.
That's fantastic. Thank you all. And we're noticing the repairs that are going on, so thank you again. And I appreciate that. I think the people of Guam deserve the roads to be safe as possible. I'm not sure you're aware, but on the Cross Island Road, they're digging it up to put in, looks like pipes, sewer pipes maybe?
Sewer pipes, yes.
Yes. That road's a mess. But there's a certain portion towards Jotnya. The Jotnya end of Windward Hills is beautiful, right? It's smooth.
That was phase 1, yes.
Yeah, so anyways, it's just, there's such starking contrast, I guess, that everybody's driving every day. And so we really do see, there are so many villages. I'm glad to see the lists out, and hopefully we can put this on our website so that everyone will know what's up next. And if you could give us the list, then you said we have a village repair list, and so all of these projects come from that village master plan?
Yes.
And so
well,
what's...
From the mayor's list, I gave you a master list, which
yes.
3 from the mayor's listing and 3 from the village street master plan, the top 3.
Okay.
I need to update that and submit that to you as well.
Yes, if you could. And so what you would use the additional 3.5?
Correct.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Madam Vice Speaker. And also, just for your information, I know you inquired about Route 17. We did get a response from the director with regards to that. Right after they're done with the installation of those pipings, then Hawaiian Rock will be stepping in and refurbishing some of those areas that are kind of rough. So thank you very much, Director Leongoro, for that response. Senator Morrison?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Director and DPW management teams and the DPW team here for joining us this morning. I thank the Vice Speaker for her line of questioning, pretty much answered most of my questions, but I do want to thank you for pointing out the 3.5 million that you're tracking. Is that being tracked with DOA? Is that how you're tracking this?
I don't have any accounting numbers. I'm just giving an estimate that was given to me from BBMR last year.
Okay, because that was always been the estimate since the point in time where we adjusted the liquid fuels tax, working with DPW and the fiscal team. So it's good to see that that number is still being put before this body to make sure that we at least work with this committee, and our people are aware that, you know, when we did this adjustment, we were lining it up with a justified repair list, or at least to start picking away at the Village Streets Master Plan or the overall master plan at DPW. So when you're pointing out round one, round two, these are based on, you said, the top three from the mayors and the top three from the plan. And you're saying right now you have the necessary funding or to address these for fiscal year 2018. These are, okay.
That's correct. We have the funding to do both rounds, and we'll proceed with this. As far as the scheduling, we'll come up with the scheduling.
And the actual here, this is the cost for material supplies. That's for when the breakdown here for the actual for, let's say, round one at 1.5 million. That's for basically materials and supplies, because all the work's being done in-house, right?
Correct. Most of this capital outlay is to Hawaiian Rock, or to our vendor, and other vendors like paint for striping and signage, etc.
Okay. Just wanted to bring this up real quick. We had I'm sure you coordinate with GVB, and there are resources from the TAF that is used to address some needs in our community as far as road repairs and areas, but or outsourcing some of the maintenance roadways. But there was a testimony yesterday that, you know, due to the resources being cut from FY 2017 to 2018 was about a 150,000 less. They were requesting that amount back, and basically pointed out that area right in Derido near the GPD precinct, and that route there. I think we all know about that, the median and sideways that basically was outsourced in the past. Were you able to coordinate with GVB regarding this area being, I guess, one of the areas they had to cut?
I'm sorry. The area that I was coordinating with GVB on was the Fahrenholt Road. I'm not sure. Is that the same route you're talking about?
Right, Derido?
No. This is in Tumuning. So Derido, this is new to me.
Yeah, this is the area that they pointed out that used to be outsourced.
Oh, you're talking about grass cutting?
Yes. Just basic road maintenance. So I'm just wondering if has there been any coordination? Given there's uncertainty, they should get this $150,000 back into restore the outsourcing of the area.
We would absolutely welcome that. At this point in time, we get to it when we can, and I don't know if it's high. Is it high this week? Oh, sorry, they cut it Monday. So yeah, it's whenever we have free time, and we'll actually get to doing the road maintenance in terms of grass cutting.
Okay. Yeah, because there was just some discussions yesterday that, you know, if this is the case, should we just?
Yeah, they've stopped from the farmers market all the way down to Naval Station, Route 2, Route 4, and they used to do Harmon Loop and all the way up to Anderson. So that's
okay. I also want to point out, I'm very encouraged that the Vice Speaker has introduced a measure to provide for the appropriation of the fuels tax for the 2019. Given that you have to wait for this appropriation and tracking it and seeing that it is generating the needs, I mean, just based on these round one and round two, we're seeing these the averages come around near the amount that we're generating in the adjusted liquid fuels tax, and having the need to wait for the legislature to move to appropriate this money, would you agree that this fund be a continuing appropriation so that you can proceed as necessary to address the needs of this community as far as road repairs?
I would, but I think the issue that what I'm hearing is the issue of accountability. So, and if you give that to me, I would suggest that you put in the controls that say, whoever the director is, that these are the roads. You have to project when the roads are going to, and that somehow there's some sort of an approval process so that the funds are actually used for what they were programmed for. And you're absolutely right. When I first came here 3 years ago with Senator Rodriguez's bill, when we did challenge them also, that kind of opened my eyes and said that we are severely lacking, but this is something we can improve on. And I'm grateful for everything that this body has provided for the department. And so we're taking that to heart. We're building village street roads, which we've not done in a long time. We've done corrective action, but we've not done whole projects. And now we're doing whole projects, and I'm grateful for that. I think the next iteration is that we come back to you and ask you to, because part of our mandate with the federal highways is that we do the maintenance work, and because we haven't been able to do it. As for an example, East Seng Song Road. It's a really bad road, and that's a routed road, and so we can't use the money because you said it's for village streets. Can't use it for routed roads. So I'm with the $2 million, I'm able to get that kind of flexibility. But there and like when I first came in, I remember Chairman Uggan mentioning Roy T. Damien. We actually did some spot work there, and again, that's another routed road. What we're looking for is that the ability to do all the roads and have that kind of flexibility, and that's what we would ask for.
I bring this up, Director, because you pointed out you're kind of ahead of schedule with some of these projects, and kind of projecting out how soon you can get these done, and we certainly don't want to hold up DPW if it can move a lot sooner, and you have to wait for the next budget cycle. Emergencies arise. Certainly, we would want to maximize the use of this fund, sure. Not only certainly for these village repair lists, but our community does have at times emergencies with our road repairs, and certainly I bring up that so this committee, or put it on the record, that maybe it's an option we should look at to allow this to be a continuous appropriation, so that's there, and it's used specifically not only for village repairs, but also emergencies should they arise.
Absolutely. This, as we were talking before, the Route 2 accident, if that portion, I'm not sure where it is, but if that portion is not, the rights of way aren't clear, then federal highway funds will not go into that. We would have to use local funds, and if there are engineering fixes that can be instilled. So, I mean, you mentioned we had 4 fatalities, and if there's an engineering fix to fix that, then you give me the flexibility to fix that. I'll be happy to do that.
Okay. Thank you, Director. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Senator Morrison. Interesting line of questions in regards to whether that funding source should be continuous. Let me say this, I have stood against that liquid fuel tax that was implemented January 1st, but let me just share some numbers with you. Initially, before the implementation of that, the per gallon cost just for regular gas was about $4.01. The per gallon cost today is $4.42. That's equivalent to 4 cents a gallon, which was exactly what the liquid fuel tax imposed on January 1st. So regardless, in this case, because of the conditions out there, that additional anticipated revenue will be generated that can go towards Guam Highway Fund requirements. We didn't have to impose a liquid fuel tax rate to be able to generate those kinds of revenues. So if it means reducing that or repealing that and taking that tax away from our people, then I will continue to stand by that particular proposal that has been introduced. Senator Esteves?
With respect, Mr. Chairman, I believe Senator Lee was present before me.
Thank you, Senator Esteves. Senator Lee?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I also want to take the opportunity to thank you, Mr. Director, and Ms. Pierce, and your entire management team, and all of the men and women who are here, part of the DPW family. We certainly, the entire community does well when DPW does well. And we drive down these roads every day, especially, I personally drive down Hamburger Highway. I mean, many, many times over the last few years, but over the last few weeks and months, it's been a pleasure to be able to, and it's really cut down my travel time and helps to get the kids to school on time. So I really appreciate that. One of the things that was asked previously by the chairman was about the utilities increase. So Ms. Pierce, I just wanted to give you an opportunity to expand on that a little bit. We've seen a variance, an increase in your power, $115,000 increase in water, $49,000, and telephone services, $19,000, for a total of $184,898. Can you just give us a little bit more information on this anticipated increase and why it's so much?
Currently, we pay for the DPW compound in Harmon to include our 8 satellite bus stations and Coral Pit. We have seen a spike in our water. We found some major leakage, but was repaired. And in one of our satellites, there was also a break in the pipe, which was repaired. We're also, our power bill has also increased. We're trying to be more proactive and work closely with the utility agencies because we want to go online and determine some activities. We had Waterworks come in and perform a bench test, and they said the readings were pretty accurate. We're getting more aggressive as to tracking why these costs are increasing. So at this time, I don't have a specific answer other than we're doing analytical review on these in terms of consumption and measuring it.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, it's certainly our hope that if we are able to identify and repair these leaks, identify and repair the pipe breaks, that won't be such a large increase in your budget. I did take a look at your citizen-centric report that was submitted, I think, in 2017. That was for fiscal year 2016. So I wanted to ask you when you anticipate submitting an updated citizen-centric report to the body.
Yes, we're required by the public law. I don't have the reference with me, which says that 60 days after the issuance of an audit report of GovGuam is our deadline. We're in the process of working on it. I don't have a timeline at this time. I'm sure June or July. And then again, it depends. We haven't heard of, we normally get a memo from the OPA's office saying that the audit report has been issued and there will be a deadline for it. Okay. We haven't had that memo yet. But we're looking at hopefully in July.
Okay. One of the things that was interesting to me in your the third page of your citizen-centric report was, a detailed breakdown on your finances and where the money came from. And I know that there's been significant changes to this pie chart. We had, 85% in federal funding, 4.15% in general fund, appropriations, tourist attraction fund, and the territorial highway fund was also detailed in this chart. And I know that that's changed significantly, so I'd really like to if you could provide that to the committee in advance of the citizen-centric report, just your budget breakdown. That's helpful. We also took a look at a revenue summary report that was submitted to the legislature in April for March of 2018, and that identified $1.4 million in revenue that was coming in from fees and permits associated with DPW, and that was $1.4 million so far in fiscal year 18. In fiscal year 2017, you collected $2.554 million. So I just wanted to ask if we're on track to bring in a similar amount, more this year. Are you able to provide that information to the committee? In your revenue.
Okay, compared to 2017, Max Manzano, CIP, Chief Engineer. At current time, right now, what the projection we have is that we will be basically collecting the same amount. We don't really see such significant increase on the B.J.F fund collection.
Okay, thank you very much. Another thing that was indicated in your citizen-centric report, we talked about the challenges, and the Vice Speaker also brought this up, resolving prior year obligation, fixing road repairs, manpower resources, insufficient supplies, and then also in your report to us, Mr. Director, you indicated that since fiscal year 2012, you've had a decline in your full-time employees to the tune of about 38%, if my math is correct. Given these limited resources, another thing that was indicated in your citizen-centric report was your challenge with training your current employees. And so I wanted to ask you a little bit about employee training and to see if any of that employee training is indicated in this budget, and how I know Ms. Pierce also talked a little bit about, CEUs for certain employees, but do you have a plan for training our employees in general and to, I understand that we have very limited resources. We can't hire additional personnel, but if we, maintain the training in some way, we might be able to just keep that level.
So for the majority of the largest portion of the department's manpower needs comes from bus operations, and we're fortunate and blessed to have Frank, who is also a defensive driver trainer, and so he does his training for our bus operations, and also does defensive driving training for the rest of the department. Then we have Ben, who's dual hatting for the test facility, which is the overweight scale, and he's also our safety officer. So we do have training that is available for free, that's being offered through civil defense and other areas, and we share that. What you're absolutely right, though, is what we need to do is we need to come out with a per individual training plan, and make sure that we follow through with that plan.
Thank you, Mr. Director. One of the things you also mentioned in your statement, you talked a little bit about unfunded mandates, both through MSHA and US EPA. So I wanted to ask if you have attempted to realize any federal government or federal grant funding specific to addressing these issues. On the DPW Coral Pit, you said estimated compliance requirement amounts to $2 million, and then an additional $3.7 million for US EPA. Clean Water Act, and maybe some other requirements, some other unfunded mandates. So if you could...
We are looking to, we've talked to both the US EPA and to the Department of Labor, because there are some federal funds, but not in the amount to cover the actual costs. But we are absolutely pursuing that, and when it comes to fruition, I will be able to defray some of the costs that we're highlighting here.
In total, what is the federal grant or the federal funding that you receive?
Oof. So we get $15 million, $15 to $17 million for federal highways. We get $1 million for Office of Highways, from NHTSA for Office of Highway Safety. We've gotten $2 million for road projects, and then we've gotten several different from, again, impact or interior funding for purchases of equipment. And then we've also recently gotten an energy grant for photovoltaic cells. So again, federal grants it's an art, but to get it on a consistent basis, the only thing we have on a consistent basis would be Department of Transportation funding, which is NHTSA, the $1 million and the $15 million from Federal Highway.
Okay, thank you. I know that the Vice Speaker might have additional questions, but I'll hold the rest of mine for now. But again, I just really want to thank you for your dedication to not just road repairs, but also building maintenance. You know, your highway division's doing a great job, I think. Our bus drivers, you know, you have capital improvement, your admin team. It takes a lot to keep it going, and so I really appreciate your work. Sidos Masi.
I'm sorry, Senator Lee. I'd like to get back to one of your questions. At this time, as of May 15, our plan check-in fee is now tracking at about $709,000, and in last fiscal year, we collected about $1.1 million, and in our building permit fees, 25% allocated to DPW. We're now tracking at $206,000, whereas last year, for the full year, we received about $337,000 plus. So, so far, so good.
Okay, great. Time. I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator Lee. Senator Esteves.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for everyone for being present today. Mr. Director, just to reiterate, you do understand that the legislature this fiscal year will be focusing and exercising our authority on based on a zero-based budgeting, correct? And in your own words, Mr. Director, can you describe what you understand that to be?
Zero-based.
Yes.
So we start from a zero base, and from that base you build. How many people do we need? What kind of resources do we need for highways? How many people do we need? And what kind of resources do we need for bus, et cetera, for all the divisions?
So understanding you start from zero.
Correct.
Okay. Now, and if you could please, just so, you know, moving forward with my line of questioning, and so I understand, and what do you feel that you've taken adequate time? Did you have enough time to review your budget, review your agency, and understand and be able to are you in a position to justify your budget and every position?
Very good question, Senator Esteves. We submitted the budget. We were working with this administration's fiscal finance team since November, December last year. So we've been building our budget, and then I think it was 3 weeks ago, I could be wrong, but we got this letter from Speaker Cruz that you want to go from zero base. I think it's a great idea, but you're asking, do we have enough time to evolve? No, but if you continue on with this route, I think we'll evolve, and we'll come up to come up with the budget that you're looking for, or at least we'll tell you what our building blocks are, and you can decide whether this is a good building block or we want to move it here or whatever. But
yep. I do understand it's difficult, because on that same token, while you should have the most intimate knowledge of your agency, we as having the power of the purse and the zero-based budgeting, we're analyzing your budget as it is. And so if there are any adjustments based on at least the new guidance that you got on the zero-based budget, please, if you have any additional information, please provide that to our offices so that moving forward in the budget process, we have information moving forward. Now, with regards to that, I'd like to ask some questions. Can you please describe the purpose of the research, programming, and development and planning section of your department?
That section is from the Administrative Services Division, and basically that does several areas. One, analysis of what our current manpower is to include training, and also we want it to be more sophisticated and analytical in terms of our activity-based costing and performance-based budgeting type, to come up with activities and put a dollar next to the processing based upon a much more efficient budgeting type. So that requires a lot of re-engineering of the processes and how many people it takes to complete the task. So it's more of a research, more management analysis, such as reports, and that's the unit that also does reports as well.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I was interested to see that in the description. Now, what personnel encompasses that section under the Administrative Services Division?
At this time, based upon admin has only 19 personnel, we do collateral duties. So for that particular function, I don't have a complete 100% one FTE because we cost allocate based upon one body. We cross over in so many of our disciplines. So to answer that, 0.5 of a one FTE.
All right, understandable. Another description of that planning section is provide at least information or analysis on department-wide cost savings and reductions as part of the strategies. Has this section come up with any cost saving or reduction strategies that may be implemented, that need investment to be implemented and such?
Yes, we have. A good example is we don't have enough funding, and admin among all the other divisions is the bottom of the totem pole, the least priority. As a result of that, we utilize Department of Labor's federal programs that are 100% federally funded to provide resources, such manpower resources. So at this time, I have about 2 guards that are given to us at 100% of the federal grants to help us augment our short staff.
Now, with the federal grants that you receive, is that dedicated specifically to the security guards, or is that an amount that could otherwise go to similar operations to provide support for Department of Public Works? Is that discretionary to you, your agency, in how you apply that to your agency in terms of hiring and filling vacancies?
The program that we work with Department of Labor is a temporary program. What it is to increase the skills of these individuals that, so that they can be in the labor market. And we do not get direct funding, we're indirect. It's a pass-through because the hiring of these individuals come from Department of Labor. It gets filtered to us based upon our needs.
Well, I guess what I'm asking is, instead of a security guard, because you said it's 100% federally funded, could they have funded perhaps a bus driver?
I don't think the skill level that the people that we were getting from Department of Labor basically don't have a whole lot of skills, and that's why they're going through this program, so they can gain the skills. So we wouldn't want to hire them to drive.
Now, does the 100% federal funding include the benefits?
Yes.
And night differential? And all specialty pay?
It doesn't include night differential.
But it does include the benefits?
Yes.
All right. And because that was actually going to bring me into my next line of questioning. And again, let me just reiterate, this is just understanding and making sure that we're looking at, based on the zero-based budgeting, that we're looking at every single position, every single function, and in finding how we can maximize the effectiveness of not just DPW, but the government of Guam as a whole, in terms of now really being able to move people into positions that need to be filled. Whether that also can fall in line with on-the-job training. Do they meet the minimum requirements to fill a position and receive additional training in that position, as opposed to a direct transfer that's equal. You know, that's something we need to be looking at in government. Because I was surprised to find out that the cost of the security guards, both the classified, those in the classified positions, and the LTAs that you hired, come out to close to $250,000 a year. It is good to know that the 2 LTAs that I'm seeing are 100% funded based on federal, we said federal grant. Okay, and when does that expire?
The program has a term, and as a result of that program, they're asking incentives to pick them up as full-time employees, and that's not a guarantee that they'll be picked up. So shortly, we have 2 of them that will expire before the fiscal year ends.
And what's the intent for those positions?
At this time, I do have 1 security guard vacant. It's a funded vacancy.
And my next question, the section responsible for research, programming, development, and planning, have they looked into the potential of outsourcing? Do we know what the cost of outsourcing such a service would be as opposed to a classified employee that receives annual increments and benefits that are inclusive of there that provide that generally is going to cost more than, I would assume, as a business person, would cost much more to the taxpayer than outsourcing. Have we looked at what that cost would be? We're talking, I think, four security guards total is what your staffing pattern shows, correct? And I'm assuming they're responsible for guarding the yard and the facilities and equipment. Do you know, Mr. Director, what that would cost to outsource?
Not off the top of my head, but we did do a study. We did check it out. We actually looked at G4S. We had to do a couple of things. We had to do a security assessment, and then and we're looking to either again, it was something we looked at. Didn't have the funding, so we never really pursued it. But there is that number. I can dig it up, and then what we're also looking at is thinking outside of the box and working with GPD. As for an example, we can get cameras. They've got somebody that's monitoring down in Tumon, and if we put we've already talked to Chief J.I., he said it's okay. If we put a monitor, we put a screen, they'll be able to monitor our.
And let me just reiterate, you know, my line of thinking, right? And I understand. I mean, we're responsible to form and have a merit-based system, and there isn't much career progression for 4 security guards within the government of Guam. And I would really prefer to see them in such a field, if possible, as a bus driver, where we know we have critical shortages and where there is career progression and steady increments, because that's a need that we know is not going to go away. So I do implore you, and under this section that should be looking at things like this, to look at what the costs and be able to present that to the legislature, whether that be an additional appropriation to do the security assessment study. I would assume that if you're having issues with that, and if there is a potential for cost savings, that you can present the amount needed for the investment, i.e. the security study, to the legislature so we can appropriate that and look at long-term savings within the government. But, you know, based on the description of what I'm seeing in the section, that sounds like something that, you know, potentially should have already had been done. Another responsibility I'm seeing of this section is a reviewing of SOPs. Is that something standard operating procedures, that's something we've done? Are they up to date?
We're still doing that.
Okay. So it's current work in progress.
Correct.
And you are aware that it is now auditable by the public auditor?
Yes.
And you are aware of the requirement to post them online for transparency? Okay. My next question, Mr. Director, I'm seeing a temp position here, position 4655. Messenger clerk, is that also a federally funded position? No. Now, can you describe what exactly does a messenger clerk do?
He would get all the mail and every document that needs to go out, delivered to all the various agencies, compile that twice a day. And during the time he doesn't do any runs, he's assigned to the warehouse to help out, and since we're short everywhere, to include warehouse.
Is that a position authorized in your staffing pattern?
Yes.
Yes. All right, now I see that as a temporary position. Is there an intent to fill that in full time?
Yes.
Okay, now again, back to the same thing, Mr. Director. What we're looking at, and we understand that every single government of Guam employee is a long-term investment for the taxpayer. And in a merit-based system, we need to look at positions and adding classified positions or people in the classified system that are actually a part of the merit-based system, where there is upward mobility. And as opposed to somebody coming into the classified service that's going to be a mailman for the entirety of their 20 plus years, if they so decide.
What we don't do, Senator Esteves, is, like I said, and back to Senator Lee's line of questioning, that's something we should be doing, is we get a profile of each individual and see what their capacities are, so we can come along and build them to whatever options. And typically what happens, as you know, is that this person who now is working as our runner, if you will, or messengers, if there's something that's available and he qualifies for it or she qualifies for it, that's what they're going to pursue. They're already in the GovGuam system, and now they have to apply for it. They have to get checked by Department of Administration, and then they get hired.
I understand, but you know what that entails for them to be in the GovGuam system. It does come at a cost. And again, I understand that. And what we want is career progression and upward mobility. So when you look at other state governments and how they run their classified merit systems, and the federal government, we do have mimic in some ways to allow the transference from different positions that are either equal and that the pay remains. That's something, I agree with. But what we want to do is maybe try to reduce the positions that we don't need to keep filling with in a classified service that we can maybe outsource as a cost savings, so we can fill more critical positions and start putting people in positions that fill a critical need. Remember, and I want to key in the word, a critical need, such as a bus driver, that is in the classified system, that does receive the increments that are justified. A couple more questions, and thank you for your indulgence, Mr. Chairman. I see here on your proposal and then even in the current, can you please describe the special pay category in your budget for employees and what that includes? And I understand what it is, but for the public to understand.
Yeah, it means holiday pay and night differential and regular work for holiday pay.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Director, can you please help me understand, excuse me, at least for some of these positions and in your proposed budget, and I think what you even had in 2018, the special pay category for some of your employees in the administrative services division. I'm trying to figure out program coordinator 2, what they would need to be doing on a holiday. I can understand a construction worker, a plumber, an electrician, a bus driver that perform very specific functions. I'm trying to understand, and a security guard. But what I'm trying to understand is the need for some of the, to put it as simply as possible, desk jobs to be afforded holiday pay, or to the necessity for them to be working on a holiday, and what function would they be providing?
This person, we have our budget deadlines, and a lot of the times the budget deadlines given to us to provide a complete document are pretty aggressive. So that person would do preparation for the budget requirements, also does some financial reportings, and on the fiscal year end, how everything just comes in all at one time, that person does a lot of work related to budget and financial.
What's the cost per hour for, I think everyone knows overtime is time and a half. Now how about for a night differential?
I believe it's 10% per hourly rate.
So,
and overtime is not for everybody. Overtime depends on their position.
I understand. I mean, overtime and
Yes.
holiday pay
Yes.
as well. So safe to say night differential is the cheaper option of the three.
Correct.
Correct?
Yes.
And I mean, and again, you know, to your needs, and maybe it might be looking at the minutia, Mr. Director, but any cost savings that you can find the government. I mean, somebody on a budget deadline, I'm sure would probably be more appreciative to have work an extra hour a day as opposed to trying to cram it out at the end when they're completely tired or exhausted or on a holiday that they could be spending with their family. And I think another positive outlook is that it provides additional savings to the government at looking night differential. So if somebody did have to make a deadline, I think a night differential pay over any of the others that are afforded, I think might be another option that we can look at. And again, you know, these are things I'm just curious about because it's not only the program coordinator too. I'm seeing property control officer, which I can understand. And as supply clerk, which need to be available to provide supplies for those that are working. But do we need both at any given time?
During emergency operations, warehouse has to be open.
And how many emergency operations have we had in fiscal year 18?
Not very much.
And now the proposed budget is that based on any historical data, at least on the special pay, on, you know, when, or is it just kind of to have on the side in case there's an emergency and you did have to call them in and they are budgeted for? Is that what the intent is for 2019?
I usually go by a historical trend.
Okay.
And a lot of times, Mr. Senator, we prioritize who comes in so that we do cost savings and allocate all that special pay to the guards instead of the other types of discipline. Because we prioritize, the budget is based upon our historical information, but in real life, we use judgment as to what is priority. And a lot of it is the security guards.
But what I do see right here, though, is that there is at least a proposal on the 2019 budget for special pay for a good portion of the administrative services division, and then the security guards have their own allocation or at least budget requests for specialty pay. So again, I'm trying to understand that the request should cover all of them based on historical trends that I'm hearing. But I do understand sometimes cash flow management and cash flow cycles can be an issue. Moving on, let's see, what do I have? Mr. Director, and I just to clarify that for the record, I mean, because you're not the first person to have brought this up. And so this budget, 2019, would you say meets the needs of your department per your mandates?
No.
And why is it that you didn't, again, and I know we're being a bit redundant here, and why is it that you're not proposing to this body a budget request based on the needs of your department?
Because I'm living within my ceiling.
And can you please describe this ceiling? Because not a lot of people are aware what this is, and I want to be very clear that this body does what it can based on the information provided to provide for your department, but that, that has to be a reciprocal thing, right? You have to provide us with all the information so we can deliberate and try our best to support you. We can only do that based on the information you provide us. So please describe and for the public what that ceiling is.
So every budget cycle, we have a ceiling or a level that we budget to. And as you're saying, what we inevitably do is we go from the ground up and we see how we can meet within that ceiling, so that every division, at least, first of all, our priorities are we take care of the manpower. We don't, they're our biggest resource. Then if we can, we're looking at different resources. But the challenge that we've had, the challenges that I've been looking at for the last 3 years is I'm trying to build capacity. And I'm not just necessarily looking at as you say, more bodies. I'm looking at bodies, but I'm also looking at competences.
And thank you for clarifying. Who provides that budget? Who gives you the budget ceiling? Is that self-inflicted?
No, BBMR.
BBMR.
Correct.
But you don't understand their justification for the budget ceiling, correct?
I understand that we have a finite, like I said before, we have a finite budget that we collect from income taxes, and so based on that and whatever the territorial highway fund, the whole funding sources that we have, and they allocate this.
Understand now, Mr. Director, and just so, again, you know, we're on the same page. At the end of the day, who has the power of the purse?
The Finance Committee and yourself.
No, that's the legislature.
Yes.
Mr. We appropriate, and that's put into law. So, you know, please, with future requests, and again, I stand open, regardless of what your budget is, Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, Mr. Director, the final product is what's passed by the legislature. So, you know, I implore every agency, if there's anything that you'd like to provide further, at least to me, or, you know, I open that up to my colleagues as well, that you can justify based on merit, I'll do my best to fight for it. But I can only do that with the information provided. If it wasn't for the impromptu discussion with Mr. Taitano on letting us know what the shortages are on the buses, you know, it was very surprising to me. And now that we have that on the record, that's information we can work with. But the legislature can only handle or do work with the information that we're provided. You know, so regardless of the budget ceiling, Mr. Director, feel free to reach out. But that goes both ways, because I do have every intention. I do have additional questions that I'll be sending your office, and give you the opportunity without any rush deadline. I mean, the only deadline being the actual budget session, to make your case, and that I can present before the body to try to justify these individual things. Because I think the one thing we all agree on is you have a lot of things that you need, that you have to pay for.
Yes.
And it's a very competitive environment. Excuse me, environment out there right now. And so I implore you. You said it before. Should you just be worrying about your agency? Absolutely, absolutely. Focus on your agency and be their biggest champion, so that when I'm comparing different interests, the justifications that you put forth with specifically to your agency, I can take that and charge forward and try to support you in either increases to different areas of your department. With that, thank you for your indulgence, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Esteves. Vice Speaker Talai.
Thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Chair, to ask a couple more questions.
Sure.
First of all, could you just, you gave us a huge proposal for this to meet with the clean water, storm drain.
Yes.
Pollutants that are going into our receiving waters. Could you please give the details? Are the details of this in the budget package? I didn't see them. So if you could please give us the details. What's this $3.7 million going to go to, and the annual operational cost of $2.9 million? And if I could see the report that talks about the pollutants, I would like to see that also, please. Sure. Thanks. And well, you've got everybody here. Who is your procurement team? Now, DPW is the head procurement officer for the government of Guam when it comes to capital improvement projects. So who is on your procurement team?
So I'm obviously the contracting officer, and Andy, I'm not here. So within procurement, we have Max, who's in charge of the capital improvement, and within that section is our procurement, which is headed by Linda Ibanez. So we're just now staffing. We're just now developing that because of what happened with Simon Sanchez. So we're trying to build the capacity, as I was mentioning to Senator Esteves. So she's the person that's in charge of all of our procurement. Prior to that, for equipment and all those purchases, it was Todd and Paul. They would do the equipment purchases. They did all the equipment purchases for most of the government of Guam. So the buses, the heavy equipment, all that other stuff would be their expertise, and they were the ones that went out to GSA and worked with GSA to procure. For capital improvement, again, Max has within his department, he's got a couple of engineers that try to fit in and conduct our contracting, to do they do the small projects, and they do it very well, but the bigger projects, now, as I said, I'm developing my team with Linda Ibanez.
All right. I would like to maybe continue this discussion at another time, but just because I think the government of Guam needs to know that DPW, as the lead agency in procurement for capital improvement projects, has the expertise and has the team that is needed to accomplish this. Because there's so much criticism of procurement, but I don't think it's really the procurement laws as much as just we need to make sure that we've got these bases covered. Thanks. And you zeroed out in your budget the study for the government office space, and I just wanted to know who would have done that, or how would you have done that if it had been funded?
I would have asked for additional clarification, because when we got the $250,000 from the general fund, and the requirement is to do the government study, we went out to GSA, and. Yeah, but the procurement was going through GSA for services. If your understanding is we're looking at something from an architectural standpoint, then it would go to me, and an architect can actually do that. And if that's the case, then we could have changed it. But at this point in time, we viewed it as a services requirement, so the procuring officer would be GSA, not DPW. And
what type of services?
It would be some management consulting services that actually looks at hand motion, size of what kind of office space you'll need per individual for whatever tasks the individual's performing, whether it be carpentry, desk job, etc.
All right. Okay. And finally, my final question is just, it looks like DPW has been able to squeeze in some road projects that are not on these lists.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
How does that happen, and do you intend to do any work on the Swamp Road? I've been getting a question on my text.
Good question,
that,
and let me answer the first question. Every year, what we've seen, this is what happened with Hamburger, and some of the money came actually from the flood mitigation. So we have a balance of that, and there's authority for me to fix roads with that. So that's some of the money, but I haven't been touching that for the last year and a half to 2 years. What we did with Hamburger was we got lapses in funds 2 years ago, or 3 years ago. I lost $900,000 because it went to GSA, held up in requisitions, and as you know, if we don't use the money, we lose the money. So the next fiscal year, I learned from that, and whatever lapses I anticipated, I took $500,000 from everybody else, and they were complaining, but I took it, and we built Hamburger. This year, because I've got Linda, now I'm doing two things. I'm going to do some additional road projects, and with the lapses that I have, and then I'm also going to do some building repair, which we have not done at the department, and we can do elsewhere. So because we have Linda, I'm going to split that money into highways and to vertical improvements as the contracting officer. So we can use that. I don't know if I answered all your questions, but it's basically with lapse money, and that's...
Lapses from personnel that retire?
Whatever.
Okay. Then that sounds good, but could you send us something in writing that tells us what you plan to use? If you had lapses, what would you use it for?
Sure.
Thank you very much. I guess I just want to know the priorities.
Yes.
Thank you.
Is there a timeline for that? Because it
depends on what day, right? You're writing.
No, because we're going to have to accumulate what we anticipate our lapses to be.
What do you intend to work on Swamp Road?
So to answer Swamp Road, we cannot touch that, Senator, because Swamp Road is CLTC property, and I understand from Senator Ada, he says that we cannot touch. I know we did the thing up in Barragata Heights. He corrected me. Because I have fully intended to finish it. He's given me if we do an MOU, sir.
Director Leon, the issue with the Barragata Heights, there was no permit.
Yes.
That was the issue.
So what
it wasn't whether, in fact, DPW was able to do the work. There was no permit.
No. It's not just that, Chair. It's two things. We didn't do the permit, which is correct, and happy to do the permit. That's what I projected out. We will do the permit since we started the work. But then Senator Adat said to me that there is a law that says that we cannot use government funds or local government funds for Chamorro Land Trust properties. I haven't checked it, but that's what he told me, and so that's my understanding. If that's not true, then Swamp Road's back on the table. If that's correct, then I can't touch it. But if it's not true, then I definitely want to do Swamp Road. It's got an for traffic connectivity. It needs work. It certainly benefit the island.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director Leon Guerrero and Deputy Leon Guerrero, Mr. Manzano, Mr. Cepeda, Ms. Pierce, Mr. Taitano, and Mr. Munya. I know you were kind of silent today, but it's okay, we understand. But, you know, let me just close with this. There were a number of hardline questions that I posed in your direction, and rightfully so, because this is where the buck stops, so to speak, in terms of being able to allocate resources to the department. But those were very, very critical questions that had to be asked in terms of the use of people resources and the use of the people's money. But albeit, the department continues to do good work for our community. And I'll close on that note, because the striping, I know, with the Tamuning San Antonio Road, you were able to at least have your agency address some of the concerns that has been brought to your attention, not only by my office, but a number of our constituents. Also, heading up north, you were able to address some of those striping, and we're talking about safety, especially in light of many of our senior citizens who drive at night. And then there are other components, whether it's the paving of secondary and tertiary roads, or some of the other issues or services that you're providing. So I need to close on that note, recognizing that your people still do good work. This is where the budget comes in, requests in terms of where we have to ask all these questions. So thank you again for your presentation, and there was a number of information requested from your department, and if it wasn't shared today, Ms. Pierce, if you can direct that information to Speaker Cruz. Okay, thank you very much. This committee will recess this budget hearing until this afternoon at 2 p.m., where we will meet with Department of Youth Affairs. Thank you, folks.